Hey everyone, it's Ashley from PreventConnect. If you've been part of the PreventConnect community for a while, you've probably become accustomed to our look, and you may have noticed that at the beginning of 2019, we changed a few things. Not only did we get a brand new website, but we developed a new logo and chose a whole new color scheme. What hasn't changed is our mission and our content. In fact, if anything, our new look has helped us become even more aware of who we are and what our purpose is. For this podcast, we sat down with our graphic designer, Celeste Espinoza, to talk through the process we went through. Beyond that, we also talked more generally about the importance of a cohesive look, and Celeste shared her insights and tips for utilizing graphic design, even when you don't have access to a professional. It turns out there are simple tricks we can all implement to make our work look better. I hope you enjoy. Happy Friday, everyone. This is Ashley from PreventConnect, and I'm here with Tori Vandeland and Celeste Espinoza, our graphic designer. So how are you guys?
Happy it's Friday.
Super happy it's Friday.
Yay!
Heading into a 3-day weekend.
Oh yeah, we are. So PreventConnect, we're actually coming down from a really exciting week where we launched not just a new website, but a whole new look. New PreventConnect logo, new color scheme, like everything is new. I've been saying that we've had some work done. And so even though all of this happened this week, it's been a process. You know, we've been working on this for months now. And there was a lot of pre-work that went into being able to finally show everyone the finished product. So we have Celeste here with us, so she can kind of walk us through some of the decision making, because for me, going through a rebrand for the first time, it was really interesting, like how that process was. There's just a lot of like thinking and planning, and you don't just come up with these things out of nowhere, but there's getting to know like your audience and what your whole goal is for the project. So we thought it would be cool to walk through that. So that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I'm just excited for Celeste to walk us through and tell us about the logo and the process. And I know I learned a lot from the process, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I want to hear from Celeste.
Yeah. So Celeste, I guess so I'm going to ask you the first question, which is when we came to you and said we want to redesign PreventConnect's logo, like what were things that you were going to need from us right up front?
I think the first thing that I dove into was really figuring out what PreventConnect was, because coming into CALCASA, I was brand new to this field and brand new to the movement. And then on top of that, it was like this project called PreventConnect, and I was like, cool, like I make like little web banners for it and things of that sort to promote different resources that provide, but I wasn't too familiar with what PreventConnect is on paper, like what is it defined as. So a lot of the first things that I was looking at was background information and like looking at the history of PreventConnect and like really like what the mission of PreventConnect is, and just diving into that. So I think initially I went to our website, which was not not the easiest to, look at, but there was a lot of resources there. It was just not easy to go through things. So a lot of that was looking at, what the mission was there, about the About page, and doing some research there. And then following that, once I got as much as I could, then it was interviewing both of you to kind of get your side of things and how you see PreventConnect. So I think that helped a lot to frame what PreventConnect is and what you guys are here to do in this field, and kind of just get more of that. So when I had the interview with you guys, I asked more about the mission and the values and, define those clearly. But I also was confused on like who is being served through PreventConnect, like who is this resource really for. And diving more into that, it was kind of, the audience wasn't just one person or one type of person. It was kind of a diverse set of people with different skills and different needs. So organizing that so I could understand it better, I think helped me through the process of designing something that would fit the needs of such diverse people.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you've been making like graphics for our web conference announcements, and so we had over the year, well, now it's been over a year since you've been with CALCASA, but we've been working with you to kind of figure out, okay, we are an online project. All of our tools and our technical assistance primarily happens online, and so why aren't we utilizing more of like these visual elements? And so it was really cool to be able to work with you and to start incorporating what graphic design could do for PreventConnect even before we headed into the rebrand. And then the other thing that I was going to say is I feel like you gave us these exercises. It was kind of like, right? Like we kind of had to do homework because I think, and Tori, you can speak to this too, we can explain what PreventConnect is and why we're here, but some of the questions that you were asking us, like, well, who's your audience and what do you want your audience to do? Or, what is the point of this? Like that we had to really think about that and get really clear about that and concise to then be able to describe that to you. So then you could come up with some visual representations of that. So I think, it sounds like you're saying that it was kind of like a learning process for you coming into this. And I think for me, it was definitely the same. So I think we were kind of like exchanging knowledge between the two.
Yeah. It's definitely a back and forth.
Yeah. I agree too. Starting this process, I think just a couple months into when I started with CALCASA and PreventConnect, that was a really great opportunity for me to really dive in and learn about, who is our audience, what are our goals with PreventConnect, and being able to connect that to imagery that Celeste, you helped us out with. That was a really cool experience for me. And I think too, when we were talking about, okay, when you think of prevention, what do you see? And it's such a huge concept. And for me, I'm thinking more of like stories or strategies or programs or things like that. But when we all sat down and had those conversations about, okay, what is prevention? What is community? And being able to find images that tie into that, and graphics and shapes that tie into that too. That was like really an incredible experience.
Yeah, for sure. So Celeste, talk with us first, and we can kind of jump around here, but talk with us a little bit about the colors that we were looking at when you were thinking about designing our logo. Because we shifted.
Yes.
Like, it is quite the shift.
Yeah, so I think initially we started out with, through the process, it was a lot of this research and, like, this background. And then once we started diving into it, like, we know that PreventConnect focuses on preventing sexual assault and domestic violence. But then we also go into a lot of other intersections, and I think that was an important thing to focus on when choosing the colors, that we weren't primarily, like, only being siloed into sexual assault or only in domestic violence. We were exploring a lot of different intersections that affect us and our communities. So with that, I wanted to focus more on, who is PreventConnect on this online platform and kind of choosing colors from that side of it instead of choosing something that's representative of only one field.
Yeah. So let me stop you right there, because I think one of like our first decisions that we were able to make was that we knew pretty, at the beginning that we did not want to do colors that were typically or historically associated with
Mhm.
sexual and domestic violence. So we're like,
Yeah.
we don't need to do teal, we don't need to do purple, we don't need to do an ombre of both of them.
Yeah.
Like, we know that we're okay to kind of,
Yeah.
push the envelope and see what we can open up when we
Yeah.
think outside of those silos.
Yeah.
And I think that ties in a lot to the guidance that the field is receiving from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention too, where when we look at preventing a form of violence, we can also look at the shared risk and protective factors and prevent multiple forms of violence. So by not siloing ourselves into those two colors, we're opening ourselves up to a world of prevention
Mhm.
instead of two fields of prevention.
Yeah.
And building off of those fields.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so with that in mind, I started to explore different ways to represent ourselves through color. So taking in mind that, PreventConnect is used through people's screens, I kind of took this idea of these screens and what makes them up, and in all of our screens we have the red, green, and blue little light bulbs that make up the images that we see, and depending on what's on your screen, the red, green, and blue kind of shifts. So we started off with the RGB, so the red, green, and blue colors, and then from that we decided that red can be a little bit
Like alarmist.
Yeah, a little aggressive.
It's a little aggressive. So we chose that as our secondary palette, and then the green and the blue were going to be our primary colors. And then I think we also chose the shades of green and blue. We still wanted to, show that we are approachable and that we're working in the field next to others, and showing that we're not this facade of like power and unapproachability.
Yeah, because we're a place for conversation.
Exactly.
Right? We're a place for conversation. We're a place where, we recognize that many people working across many sectors and in many positions hold a lot of wisdom and expertise in prevention. And so, I think that's a really important piece that we want to kind of like signal that this is a conversation that we all need to be part of, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're, a scientist or if you are like a community organizer. Like, your voice is just as important in figuring out how we advance prevention.
Definitely.
This might be silly, but so the whole RGB thing. So does that mean that red, green, and blue make up all of the colors that we see on our screens?
Yes. So anything that's made up with light, they use those three colors or those like wavelengths of colors to create the different colors that you see on your screen. So your televisions, your computer monitors, your phones. They use three little light bulbs that are right next to each other that are tiny, and they emit the red and green and blue. So depending on how much red or green or blue that lightens up, it's like that different wavelength that your eye sees.
That's so interesting. And I think, it's so cool because I think, we really are trying to kind of solidify our place as an online resource. And so to draw on that's how we see color through technology. I really like that. I'm very into that.
And I think there were some other ways that you incorporated our technology and online presence into the logo too, right?
Yes. Yeah. So going back to coming up with the logo itself, I really wanted to focus on the values of PreventConnect, and through the research and through, conversations we all had together, we really kind of narrowed it down to three different values that PreventConnect upholds, and those were prevent, engage, and build. So I really wanted to create a visual representation of that And I know through the process, when I first came to you guys, I just had a bunch of like random shapes drawn on. And I know maybe there might have been like a disconnect of like, okay, like what do these shapes mean? Like, okay, I get it. Like, but it was kind of creating like different shapes that for me as a visual person that represented these values. Mm-hmm. And then through different iterations of them, through conversations that we had and critiques that we had, then finally coming up with this logo that kind of encompasses all of those things and also encompasses the online presence. So with the logo itself, the triangles that are in there, those are a representation of our screens, kind of mostly our laptops, when we open and close them, they kind of have that movement of like those triangles, opening and closing, and that kind of, I think, also goes with our value of engaging, because that's how we engage people, through our screens and through our online presence. And then with that online presence, we have, like I said before, like intersections of people and different types of people in the field and in the community that have different skills. So I wanted to show that with the circles that we have in the logo. And all those circles are interconnected with these, the negative space between the triangles. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of like a network of these circles between these screens, which is how PreventConnect connects with people. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I drew inspiration from to create the logo.
So I think it's funny because, I can't remember how many, but you did bring us, like, okay, here's some, some drafts or some ideas, and then we would kind of, like, rate them or rank them in order of, like, what we like the most.
Yeah.
And so even when we kind of, like, had narrowed it down, I think when we met and you walked us through your decisions like you just did, that was when I was, like, 150% on board. It was like I was 100% on board because I just liked how it looked visually. Yeah. I thought it looked like really clean, and it just looks good. Yeah. But then when you were like, this is why, like, these are like the corners of our screens, and these are the connections, and these are like the people that make up our community, I was like, what? That's so cool. Like, and I think too, like, that's why we wanted to have this conversation with you, because people are viewing, this new image of PreventConnect, and I just think it's important to show that, again, and I think, like, obviously anyone who's into design and has an artistic sense about them realizes that there's a thought process behind these things, but it's still just interesting to hear from the person who, dreamt it up.
Yeah, and I think initially when I started creating different options for you to see, I know I did give you an option of, like, continuing our logo to be our initials, just because that's what the field was used to seeing, of the P and the C. So I did bring one of those options, but it was more so as like a safety net for myself, because I didn't like, that doesn't resonate with me.
I think too, like, going through that process and having that conversation with you where you explain these design elements and how they relate to our values, that really pushed me away from, I had a tendency toward the initials because that was comfortable and familiar and safe. And so being bold and fearless and going with this complete overhaul of our look, I think it's safe to say it's all brand new. I think having that conversation with you really pushed me to think about like prevention and our look a lot differently too, where there's no point in holding on to something old just because it feels comfortable and familiar when we have the potential to do something really, really cool.
As I'm sure you can tell from listening to the first part of this podcast, we are super excited to be having this conversation with Celeste, and so excited to have our new logo, our new colors, and our new website. On the second part of this podcast, we'll dive into a conversation on why it's important for prevention projects and prevention programs in general to have a really strong visual identity. Stay tuned.